There we go. Yay. And in the future, if I don't start the recording when we start the session, please let me know. um, so we're just going to have like a 15-minute meditation because there's just a lot of content here and a lot of stuff that I like to do with you, a lot of exercises and things. So here we'll keep the meditations fairly short, and then you know at home obviously you can do it as long as you want. So let's get right into it. And we'll have introductions after the meditation, and then we'll have some teaching and some breakout groups, discussions and exercises, and then home practice. So, and we'll finish at 9. You all know that, but just to give you comfort on that. So finding a nice comfortable position where you can be both relaxed and yet alert. And stretching up and allowing everything to hang off the spine. And we'll begin with one sound of the bell. And allowing the attention to sink deeply into the body, noticing sensation in the body, and becoming aware of the body breathing, the sensations while you're breathing in, and the sensations while you're breathing out. And letting go of the past, letting go of what may come, and letting go of what's happening right now. Not trying to figure anything out or make things any different than they are right now. Just relaxing and resting in the sensations of the body breathing. Not trying to control the breath, but allowing the body to breathe naturally, and allowing whatever sensations are there to be there, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, or whether there's no sensation at all in parts of the body. Just allowing it all to be exactly as it is. Noticing sensations both strong and subtle. And just riding the waves of the breath, With each out breath, allowing the body to relax to whatever extent it wants. And noticing any resistance in your experience, any pushing away or grasping, any wanting things to be different than they are, any sense of liking or not liking. Whenever you notice that resistance, letting it go, releasing it, allowing that part of your body to relax, letting go of any idea that you want things to change, that you want the tension to stop or anything like that. And instead, opening fully, allowing the experience to unfold as it wants, not as you want. Now, asking yourself a question, not trying to answer it at all, and certainly not intellectually. So, this isn't about the answer, it's just about asking the question and seeing what happens. So the first question is, what is this experience? What is this experience? Every couple of breaths, just saying to yourself, what is this experience? And now asking, what is having this experience? What is having this experience? And now asking, who am I that notices this experience? Who notices? Good. Now, letting go of our focus on bodily sensations and instead focusing on mental talk, on the voice in our head. So to begin saying to yourself, hello, Hello. Just noticing where you hear that voice. Hello. And now saying it louder and louder. And now saying it very softly. Hello. Whispering it to yourself. Good. And now not trying to say anything, but just watching mental talk space, allowing whatever's there to be there. Doesn't matter whether there's a lot of thoughts or very few or none at all. We're just sitting on the bank of the river watching the thoughts float by. And if the attention wanders, if you fall into the river and get lost in thought, it's no problem. When you notice you've gone from forgetfulness to awareness, you can celebrate that. And then get out of the river, climb back onto the bank, and continue watching mental talk. And again, noticing any resistance to this experience, any pushing away or grasping or wanting things to be different. And when you notice that, and allowing the body to relax, releasing the idea that you want things to be different, releasing any any will that you're exerting against the experience, and asking who notices. And just doing that whenever there's resistance. Otherwise, simply watching mental talk space and allowing whatever's there to be there. Good. And now letting go of mental talk space, coming back to the body. And again, just riding the wave of the breath. Now I'll invite the bell to bring this practice to a close. So allowing the eyes to open if they were closed. And if you like massaging anything that needs to be massaged or moving, stretching, whatever would be kind for your body. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Untethered Soul course. I am super excited to be teaching this course. It's something I've been thinking about for, I think, about 2 years. So to actually be here now teaching it is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So thank you everyone for signing up. I really appreciate it. I thought we'd start with introductions just so people can get to know each other a little bit. So if especially when you're talking, it would be great if you could turn your video on. And so we can just you can just unmute yourself and go whenever you want. If we crosstalk a little bit, it's not a big deal, but just so we can you know, get through this. And so I think what would be great, just as a little exercise, is to share your name and what the book title means to you, The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself. So just in like 30 seconds or something, and you don't have to think about it in advance. I mean, you can if you want, but just like, you know, what does that mean to you? So I'll share last, but yeah. So who wants to start?
Thanks, Laurie. Also really excited to do this course. Hi, everyone. My name is Philippa Flynn, and I've always really appreciated Laurie's guidance whenever he teaches. I get so much from it and really connect with I guess, from the material Laurie has, you know, read and drawn from. So I think the title of the book really signifies freedom. Actually, that's what it means to me, just in one word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jyothi. I'm really excited to be taking this course as well. And the title to me just means detaching from myself and whatever myself means, I guess.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin. I think I'm unmuted. The title of the book for me is Silencing That Inner Roommate That We All Have. So simplicity, just speaking simply, I really connected with that in one of the chapters, which I thought was a great way to sort of introduce myself to the book itself.
Hi, this is Xu Yan. The book's title doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it is just any tacky title. I mean, freedom, liberty, untethered, you come up with any other name. But the reason that I am here is because of circumstances. because of the autobiography of the author, the same author that I read. So I thought, oh, okay, coincidence, connection, and of course because of Laurie, okay, another connection, coincidence. Sure, do it. There would be something that I can share, something that I can learn. Do it.
Thanks, Shiyan.
Well, my name's Andre, and yeah, the name of the title of the book for me also, the word freedom resonates with me. So freedom from habits and patterns, and so that's what I think of when I think of the title.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia. And I hadn't really thought about the title until Laurie just asked the question, but I guess I think of that part of one of the first 4 chapters where the author's talking about our, some cultures it's Buddha nature and others it's something else, but that sort of best part of ourselves that is free, and that is the sort of non-verbal, non-thinking, the noticing part, it seems to be.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian, and the title reminds me that I'm continually trying to live an untethered life, and sometimes often, sometimes not, that tether snaps me right back. And the more I read the book, the more I see the tether being able to disintegrate.
Thanks, Brian.
I'll go next. My name's Jennifer, and I guess I think it was like Julia. I don't think I've really thought about the title exactly, although I will be now, since you've asked the question, Laurie. But in general, having read parts of this book before, I think for me, what's really resonating is getting that extra distance between who myself, my consciousness, me, and my thoughts. It's always particularly my thoughts that cause me problems. So that's what I'll be hoping to learn more about.
Thanks, Jane.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and untethered to me basically means freedom, like I'm free. So that's what I thought of when I first saw that word, and there's some sort of freedom about all of this, discovering myself, I think.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Tanya. Like other people have said, I guess, like the idea of freedom and of not having such a grip and a restraining on my own self and soul, and just, yeah, that boundlessness and freedom.
Thanks, Janet.
I'm Jeff. I like the freedom too. The boundlessness, as Tanya said, that appeals to me greatly. I do many practices around that, and I really like the book, and I like Laurie, so that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Beverly Connor. And I know I've certainly heard or read somewhere that Mickey uses the reference to a hot air balloon, and that if we cut the tethers, the binds that hold the balloon down, we automatically go up. So that's one thing that it means to me, and it sort of gives me a nice feeling to picture that. And for me, the tethers are really the conditioned self, and observing just how, yeah, that's it. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth.
Hello, I'm Reza. I also have not really thought about the title, but when I think about it now, the journey beyond yourself really stands out to me from the title. And similar to many people here, freedom, yeah, what comes to mind is all the ways I get in my own way. So freedom from that comes up.
Hi, everyone. Gary. Good to see everyone. Yeah, I haven't really thought about the title, but after listening to everyone, I think freedom from the ruminating thoughts that constantly go on in my mind. And I think getting out of my own way is something that I'm interested in pursuing. So I think this is an ideal course, and I've met you, Lori, a few times at MPC in the past, and really enjoyed our talks that we had. So I'm really interested in this course. So thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janet, and I guess I was just waiting for Gary to go because I loved what you said there. That's getting out of my own way, freedom from myself, getting in my own way. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim. What comes to mind for me is allowing my Buddha nature to shine.
Thanks, Kim. I think that might be everyone. And by the way, Tanya, I apologize. I called you Janet. I'm sorry. I will. No, I won't.
It's okay. It's okay, Lori.
Yeah, I will remember again.
It's Tanya.
Tanya, sorry, Tanya.
Josie hasn't gone. Josie.
Okay.
I went.
Yeah, no, Josie went. So, so thanks everyone, and I think you're all, in the right place. Certainly, that's been my experience with practicing with Mickey's teachings. So I'm going to go into a presentation. So I'm going to share my screen, and that'll come up for everybody. And feel free. Just doing this here. Da, da, da. Where are we? There we are. Okay. So, and as you can see here, there's kind of two views you can have. There's this one, and there's this one, the side-by-side. So if you want the side-by-side, I tend to like the side-by-side view. If you want that, then you can just go to view options and side-by-side mode. And then you can use these little bars between the video images and the screen to adjust, so you can make the video images bigger if you want, and the presentation smaller. So that's my little technical point before we start. So, and feel free, by the way, to jump in at any point or to raise your hand. So you click participants and then raise hand if you want to ask a question. So, I've got this presentation, but really jump in at any time. So I want to make this as interactive as we can. Okay. So now, Now I'm just looking to see how I can do the side by side. It looks like I don't get to do side by side. You guys are much luckier than me. Okay. So I'm just I've organized this based on the chapters of the book. So chapter 1, the voice in your head. So you've all read this, I think. And so there's a voice in your head. You've probably all experienced this. And these thoughts happen on their own. They really, they're not something we intend. They just sort of, they happen. And we're not the voice. You're not the voice in your head. You're the one who watches the voice in your head. So we'll go over that a lot in this course, and especially tonight. I just had this point in here. This is not Mickey's point, but there was a Harvard study that found that people's minds wander about half the time, and that a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So they asked people. People had their cell phones, and they asked people. They just sort of pinged them at different times during the day and said, "What are you doing? Are you aware of what you're doing? And how happy are you?" And so what they found was people were a lot happier when their mind was not wandering, less happy when their mind was wandering. And so that's just an indication of the impact of the voice in your head. It's to make us less happy. And if you observe the voice, you'll see that, it'll do something like, oh, gee, I forgot to call Dave. I should call Dave. And then, oh, but it's maybe it's too late. Oh, maybe I shouldn't even call him at all. And it sort of goes back and forth and back and forth. Quite often, and it'll change sides, just in a moment. And it's really just trying to find a comfortable place to rest, to feel better, because it comes from this sense of discomfort, this sense of lack. That's what causes the voice in your head. Is just trying to find a comfortable place. So Mickey talks about the cause being nervous, fearful, or desire-based energies, and these are the blockages that he talks about. And if you haven't read past chapter 4 or attended the intro or anything, you maybe haven't heard about blockages, but that's kind of a central thing in Mickey's teachings, and we'll learn a lot more about that in coming sessions. But that's what makes the voice in your head happen. And another important thing is that the voice in your head is it's acting as a buffer between reality and your mind, right? So you take the outside world, and then you comment on it, and you filter it, and then you live in your mind. Okay, and this is something you can watch, throughout the day, or when you're in sitting meditation. That we really, it's like the idea of there's perceptions and there's reality, right? And like the Buddha always said, where there's perception, there's misperception.
Laurie,
Yeah.
sorry, what's the difference between nervous and fearful? To go back to the.
I mean, I think it's pretty subtle. Nervous to me is more anxiety as opposed to fear.
Okay, so like in degrees then.
Yeah, it could. I mean, you can be really, really nervous and have a little bit of fear. Yeah, I mean, it's just the idea that there's things that we're avoiding and things that we want, things that fear is really, to me, it's fear and desire are the two poles, but there's all different ways that our emotions come up. So I think the main thing is just that it's the blockages, the internal knots or samskaras that are inside us that cause the voice in your head, right? It's just this feeling of lack, of discomfort. You can describe it in many, many ways, but when you're feeling like peace and love and joy, generally there's not a lot of activity in your mind, unless you intend, unless you're like intentionally thinking something. And the idea behind the voice in your head is just to help you feel more comfortable and more in control. So, because we create in our mind, we create like a mental picture of the way the world is and the way we are. And then whenever the outside world doesn't quite fit with that, then we have to buffer it, right? We have to do something to to try and find a more comfortable spot, to try and feel like we're not out of control. So, it's the sense of not feeling okay and feeling like we need to protect ourselves, right? And Mickey talks about the idea that true personal growth is about transcending that part of you that needs protection, right? And that the main way to do this is by constantly remembering that you're the one inside who notices the voice talking, right? That's kind of, once you do that, then you create some space, some disidentification with the voice. And from there, then you can actually let it go. So are there any questions about chapter 1? No? Okay. So chapter 2, your inner roommate. So you can see in the picture, they're throwing the garbage out. Mickey often talks about this idea that the voice in your head, the personal mind, everything it says is garbage, and you should basically listen to none of it. And even after all these years of practice for him, he says it still goes on. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. He says, I haven't listened to it in years, right? But it's still there. And so he makes a pretty radical suggestion at the beginning of this chapter. He says, when a problem is disturbing you, don't ask, what should I do about it? Ask, what part of me is being disturbed?
Lori,
Yeah.
can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So he says, he suggests this radical shift of, instead of trying to fix the problem, I should notice who is it that has the problem, right? And as soon as you ask who has the problem or who notices, then you disidentify with the thoughts. And the real problem is our own reaction, right? I mean, obviously there are things in the world that we actually have to deal with, right? Our child is crying, we have to, they need our attention, we need to deal with that. But what he's talking about is our reactivity, right? So for example, I'm on my bike, I'm biking to work, a car gets in my way, and then I feel frustrated, and my heart closes, and I go from being happy to being, not so happy. And so that's my reaction, right? And that's the real problem in that situation. The fact the car is slowing me down is actually not a big deal. And perhaps there's nothing I can do about it. So that's the problem that I need to deal with. And so if I go into that and then I say, oh, hey, this is an opportunity to let go. And then it shifts my whole perspective. The inner problem goes away. That's been my experience. It almost vanishes, and it's like, thank you, car. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to learn to let go. And then I feel happy, and there's no problem, right? And the fact is, we can have a problem with almost anything, right? One day we want it to be, it's cloudy, we want it to be sunny, and then it's sunny, but then it's too hot. Or, I mean, I don't like the way that person looks. I don't like their attitude. I don't, we can have a problem with anything, right? And so Mickey suggests that really what we should do is learn to let go of the part of us that has problems with everything, with so many things. And he says he says these are inner problems, and a worldly person thinks the solution to our inner problems is fixing the world outside. And fixing the world outside is really just dealing with the symptoms, right? But the underlying problem is that we have this reactivity, right, to what goes on in the world. We don't, instead of saying, I'm going to do my best to enjoy whatever's going on, we instead have this idea of how we want things to be, and whenever things are not the way we want them to be, then we have this inner problem, and we go from being open to being closed, being happy to being upset. So he talks about changing our focus to this inner solution consciousness, which, as I said, is letting go of the part of you that has so many problems with reality. So what he suggests is, he says basically you've got this inner roommate there, and if you watch your inner roommate and just listen to it, listen to the chatter, as he says, don't try and fix it, but just notice it, because he says generally you don't notice the voice in your head because he uses the term hypnotized into listening. You're just so absorbed in it, you're so identified with the voice in your head that you don't even recognize that you're not the voice, and that this voice is really not giving you good advice. It's really just, coming from a place of discomfort, a place of fear and desire, and really just don't listen to it, is what he says. So he suggests this practice of spending a day watching everything your inner roommate does, right? Just noticing the voice in your head all day long. And then imagining that somebody else is saying what they say, and asking how would it feel if someone else talked to me that way? Because your inner roommate doesn't tend to talk very nicely. So, and he says you may realize that you've only had one problem your entire life and you're looking at it. He says you're locked in there with a maniac. So I don't know that it's always a maniac, but certainly I've noticed it certainly gets me into trouble. And it's not to be listened to. So there's two distinct aspects to your inner being. There's the awareness, the witness, the will, or you could say the subject of the experience, the one who's watching the experience. And then there's what you watch, which in terms of our inner self is our thoughts and emotions, and I guess bodily sensations. He doesn't talk about that too much, but so the idea is to no longer identify with your roommate, right? To create that space, that distance, by sitting in the seat of self, if you will, and I'll talk about that a little more in a moment. And he says, as soon as you don't identify with your roommate, then you're ready to free yourself. Because really, once you're disidentified, then it's a lot easier to let go. And this is not easy. I've definitely, this is not easy. Your inner roommate, we are really tied in, and we'll go into this a little more in very shortly. So he says, commit yourself to the inner work of freedom. I find that's really important, just to really set a very strong intention. I say to myself every morning, the purpose of this day is to learn to let go. And I say that over and over again to myself, so that I remember when there's a situation that comes up that, oh yeah, right. The purpose of this moment is to learn to let go, rather than whatever outer purpose might, be on my mind at the moment. He says, do it as though your life depends on it. And I totally agree. The quality of your life depends on it. Absolutely. So chapter 3, any questions on chapter 2, by the way? Oh, Beverly Connor raised hand. Bev, do you want to say something?
I suppose you'll get into it anon, but when I hear that idea, oh, just ignore it or don't listen to it, I find I have trouble understanding the difference between that and suppressing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was in this chapter, but there was the other comment about doesn't matter if it's good or if it's bad. You don't listen to any of it, basically, or you don't let it's all in the same, still your inner roommate. So those are a couple things I'm wondering about.
Yeah. So what I found is that, definitely you don't suppress it, because you can't stop your inner roommate from talking. But the not listen to it doesn't mean you don't hear it. It means you don't heed its advice, right? So if you're in the seat of self, if you've got that space between you and the mental talk, then you can just listen to it, and then you can, using your, coming from a higher place, if you will, you can say to yourself, say that you walk into a room and you feel uncomfortable and your inner voice says, I got to get out of here. So what Mickey means is you still hear, you don't try and stop it from saying, I got to get out of here. but you say, oh, well, that's interesting. I got to get out of here. Where's that coming from? Do I actually have to get out of here? Do I want to get out of here? Why am I here? What is the problem? And then you can make a decision from a place of clarity, you know.
So it's like flowing through, like the flotsam and jetsam that flows through, but you're the river or whatever.
Yeah, I think the point is not to be absorbed in it, not to, because our inner voice tends to boss us around, basically. It says, I got to get out of here, and then I get out of here because, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. Without questioning it, off I go, right? And he's saying, don't do that. Notice that this is it's just mental talk. It's not the truth. It's not you, because we have this, people tend to feel like if I don't listen, I'm not being true to myself, and that's garbage. That's absolute garbage, because it's coming from your samskaras. It's coming from your inner wounds, if you will. It's coming from all the crap that you've accumulated over your life. And it's not coming from a place of wisdom. It's just coming from, your habit patterns, if you will, or, so it doesn't mean that you may decide, oh, you know what, this thing that my roommate said is actually good advice. You may come to that conclusion, but you come to that conclusion from a place of clarity, and from a place of your higher intentions, rather than this kind of lower self, if you will.
Lori, that's what I'm thinking. If my roommate's telling me, oh, you were going to call your brother and you haven't called him yet, this is the third or fourth day that I'm thinking about doing that, and I haven't acted on it. So, it's the fact that my roommate's reminding me again is a good thing.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and and it's
well, it's not always negative.
I'm not saying never to act on it. I'm saying act on it from a place of solidity, right? Recognize that this is just the voice in my head, but then you may say, oh, thanks, voice in my head, right?
Okay.
So I'm not saying voice in your head is your enemy. I'm just saying, ask, are you sure, right?
Right.
Ask, where is this coming from, right? And obviously, if it seems like oh yeah, I should call my brother, then by all means, and I can call my brother now. I don't have to panic and call my brother. I don't have to like stop the car and pull to the side and call my brother. Maybe you want to do that, but you can assess the situation, clearly. When you're absorbed in it, you can't assess the situation clearly. Is that okay?
Yep.
Great. Thanks for your questions. That's great. Yeah. Because none of these are absolutes, right? Generally they're, we tend to go way from one end rather than the other. And we tend to be absorbed in our thoughts and just blindly listen to them. So when I say don't listen to them, I don't mean, never do what they say. I just mean,
Lori, it's
okay.
Kevin.
Yeah, okay.
I was just wondering, there's a lot of my friends, or just even discussion about trust your gut intuition. What is the difference between the two? Your inner chatter in your mind, because sometimes it isn't necessarily negative, and also this sometimes gut reaction that you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That didn't really come up in any of the chapters so far.
Yeah. And I've asked Mickey about this, and he basically says, well, as you get more and more clear, as you clear out your blockages, then there does tend to be, a sort of you know, a higher intuition, if you will. But he says it takes, he says it takes a while to get there. Now you know, myself, I have a hard time with, you know, intuition. I don't feel like I'm a very intuitive person. I tend to be a very logical person. But I think the main thing is just not, you know, to have that space, right? To ask yourself, you know, first of all, who notices? Just to be aware that this is a, you know, I'm not gonna privilege this thought. I'm not gonna put it up on a pedestal, but instead I'm gonna look at it clearly and I'm gonna say, okay, does this make sense? Is this in line with my highest intention, right? And it's up to you to decide what your highest intention is, right? But, you know, the idea of like, you know, I'm at a fork in the road, should I go left or right? And then, you know, sort of checking in with my gut. Honestly, I don't know how to do that. But if you want to go with your gut, that's fine. I mean, that's absolutely fine. It's, you know, I think the big thing is just to say, well, where is this coming from? Right? Is this my fear? Is this my desire? Or is this some higher intention? You know?
Hillary?
And I just want to add one thing. Oftentimes we try and figure out what to do when there is no way in the world that we can know what to do, right? The world is a complicated place. None of us can see the future. And so we never really know, you know, in many situations. It's like that story of the, you know, the Japanese story of the farmer, and, you know, the horse runs away and everybody says, oh, that's terrible. And he says, perhaps. And then the horse comes back with a whole bunch of other wild horses and everybody says, oh, how fortunate. And he says, perhaps, right? And then in taming the horses, his son, one of the horses injures his son has a broken leg. And everybody says, oh, how terrible. And he says, perhaps, you know. And then there's a war and they come and they take away all the young men, but they don't take away his son because he has a broken leg. And they all say, oh, how fortunate. He says, perhaps, you know. So, you know, and I find I put myself in this situation a lot where, you know, I try and figure things out. Like, it's like, what should I do, this or this? And the fact is, I have no idea. I have no idea which one is even going to be, you know, take me in the direction I think I want to go, but where that winds up after that and after that, after that. So, you know, I think personally, I think that often the best answer is, I don't know. You know, I'm in this situation, you know, I can go with my intuition, but I don't want to come from a place of, I need to figure this out. I need to make the right decision, because the fact is, you're good either way, right? You're going to be okay either way. Life, you know, life is you know, an exploration, a dance. And it's like, okay, I can go this way and go that way. They're both fine.
Laurie, can I just pick up on Kevin's question? So I interpret Kevin's question as being, maybe in my own experience, as inner knowing. So I think maybe that's a little bit different than gut intention, which you have kind of inner knowing in some way.
Yeah.
So it's different than a gut. I have experienced gut, or, you know, your kind of intuition, but there's a difference between an inner knowing, I find, as well. So it's not, I can't place where that is, but it's not your roommate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's your seated consciousness, but there's something else there.
Yeah.
If you have experienced that, or you could comment on that, or if anyone else has experience.
Well, I mean, Mickey's big practice is surrender, right? He says, forget about the whole idea of deciding which direction to go yourself, and allow the universe to guide you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that's a gut feeling in a way.
Well, he says it might be a gut feeling, or it might be, you know, a samskara. And I guess, you know, telling the difference between the two is, I think it's just a matter of, you know, being very clear that this is, what is this, just having a lot of experience with how do the samskaras tend to push me, as opposed to this, what is the universe telling me, right?
Yeah.
And
in the,
and again, it's mainly just being comfortable with not knowing, I think, and not feeling like I have to make the right decision. But I'm probably the wrong person to tell you how to follow your inner guide. So.
Hey, Laurie.
Yeah.
I'd like your opinion. So what I'm gathering from what I'm learning from the book so far, what everyone's sharing, and from even like Kevin's question about gut feeling, and what Mickey responded to that in terms of, well, you have to sort of be at a certain level, I guess, to trust that gut. So how I'm interpreting this is, and this is so far, because we're early in this practice, I kind of see Mickey's practice almost as a complementary practice to inner work of looking at sort of habitual patterns, right? So whereas if I had done no work on my habitual patterns, and I, for instance, was still seeking acceptance from all the people I used to seek acceptance from, perhaps my gut would tell me to do things that will continue to get me to get in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if I try to if I try to listen to my gut, then yeah, it'll get me more in trouble, and therefore the roommate is not helpful. However, if I am doing a complementary practice where my practice is actually helping me to pierce through my habitual patterns, so that way now I've developed this sort of insight or awareness of understanding, oh, that habitual pattern of mine is trying to act up, or I notice it wanting to act up, but thanks to my practice, I now know better, and therefore now my new gut, my new roommate voice is able to speak through from a place of wisdom. I therefore see this practice from Mickey Singer of being like, okay, well now let's listen to the roommate and see how the roommate can help.
Yeah, Mickey would definitely. We should probably put this in parking lot because we're getting late. But I mean, Mickey would disagree with that, definitely. Mickey very clearly says, we should not be deciding what we want. The universe should. We should not be we should not be saying, I'm not happy in my job. I want this other job. I want to go in a different direction. So like in his book, The Surrender Experiment, he very clearly lays out how his life has unfolded based on him basically doing things that he didn't want to do. So it's anyway, I mean, I think this is a really interesting question, but it's and it's up to everyone to, I think you're right in that, the more clarity you get, the more you unblock yourself, then the higher the chances are that that your intuition is really like a higher intuition rather than a fear-based thing. So yeah. But the whole issue of like surrender versus, figuring out what you want is, we'll get to that near the end, I think. Yeah. Oh, thanks everyone. So chapter 3, who are you? So Mickey goes through, you've all read it, hopefully. So, the idea that, when people ask you this, you might say your name or your job or your history or your relationship, and none of this is you. None of this is continuing. And same with your thoughts and your emotions and your body. And basically, who are you? You are the experiencer, the quality of awareness, consciousness, an intuitive sense of existence. And I like the way he says it here. He says, I am the one who sees from back in here somewhere, sort of back in here somewhere. I look out and I'm aware of the events, thoughts, and emotions that pass before me. And he calls this the seat of consciousness, seat of awareness, seat of self. And he says a true spiritual being lives there without effort, without intent. And, you know, now for those who have done a Buddhist practice for a while, this may seem somewhat inconsistent to say, well, you know, the self is the witness, it's the consciousness, because, you know, in Buddhism, they talk about the five skandhas, form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, and that none of them are self, right? So consciousness is not self. And here it's saying consciousness is self. And, but they're not actually inconsistent, because there's consciousness as in individual consciousness, and then there's consciousness as in collective consciousness or cosmic consciousness, ground of being, God, whatever you want to call it. And the two are connected. And Mickey, you know, quite clearly says that eventually, as we get clearer and clearer, that the individual consciousness connects with the cosmic consciousness, or the whatever you want to call it. But what I've found is that this idea that the self is consciousness is really effective at creating that disidentification with the thoughts and the emotions, and the whole outer experience. And it allows me to kind of go to a very clear place from which I have that distance, I have that space, and from which I can let go. And so for me, it's been actually quite a godsend, so to speak, to have this practice of situating myself in the seat of self, in the seat of awareness, and thinking of that as the self. And I think it's a really skillful means, at least I found it to be for me. Yeah. And he says, from the seat of self, you know, you see thoughts, you see emotions, you see the outer world. Again, if anyone has any questions, just jump in. So in chapter 4, he talks about the lucid self. And, you know, he talks about this idea that, you know, in our dreams, we're unaware that we're dreaming, but when you're lucid dreaming, then you're aware that you are dreaming while you're within the dream. And that gives you all sorts of new possibilities, and it makes the experience quite wonderful. I've only had one lucid dream, but it was quite wonderful. So, but we can have the same thing in the world, because we can be caught in our experience, be absorbed in it, or we can have this awareness that we know that we're not the thoughts, we're not the emotions, we're something else. And consciousness can be aware of a wide field of objects. You know, you can be aware of the whole room and everything in it and your body, and, you know, or it can be really focused, you know, on that little speck of dust on your screen or whatever it happens to be, and unaware of anything else, right? And it can happen suddenly. Consciousness can get sucked in, and all of a sudden it's absorbed in this one little thing and unaware of anything else. Mickey talks about this as like, you know, if you're deeply absorbed in a movie, you know, you can be unaware that you're in the theater, right? All that's going on in your experience is the movie, and you're not aware of anything else. And that's just with two senses, right? Seeing and hearing. And then he takes us through, well, what if we had all, you know, 5 senses in the movie, that we could feel and we could taste and we could smell, and that we actually, the character's thoughts became our thoughts, the character's emotions became our emotions. He said, you would lose yourself, right? And this is our predicament in life. We've got all these sense experiences, including the inner ones, all mixed together, coming at us at once. And so we get absorbed in it. And he calls that the predicament. And so we get caught in the experience, like when we get lost in thought. We identify with the experience, right? We put ourselves into it. He calls this object consciousness, which means, you know, in that subject-object, we lose touch with the subject. We lose awareness of the subject, and we're just aware of the object. And I don't think in these chapters, but in other places, he talks about this idea of, you know, would you drive your car, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're going on the highway driving the car, and then jump in the back seat. He says, no, you wouldn't do that. But that's what we all do with our lives, because basically, when we're absorbed in our thoughts and emotions, they're the ones who are driving, right? And they take us all sorts of bad places. because they're produced mainly by our samskaras, by our fears and our desires, not by our higher intention. So it's like nobody's driving the car. Our thoughts and emotions are driving the car, but that's not us. And it's kind of like, he talks about, if I showed you 3 different pictures, would you say that picture is me? No. But we get so caught in our life that we think this experience is me, right? I'm afraid. I like this. I don't like that, right? So I want to do this little exercise. So the idea is I'm going to show you some pictures, and just notice them and recognize the fact that you're not the picture. So allow whatever thoughts or emotions come up, but notice, just maybe ask yourself, who notices, right? So just be aware of the fact that you're the one who's looking at the picture. So this is just a little experiment. So, and we'll just spend a few breaths on each picture. So here we go. Just finding a nice comfortable place. Breath, becoming aware of your breath, but just knowing that you're the one who's looking. We're just sitting in the seat of awareness, looking at these pictures. Okay. So this seat of awareness, you can always just center yourself by asking who notices. And this turns awareness back on itself. And another thing you can do is just say hello to yourself, as we did in the meditation, just hello, and then notice that you're aware. You're the one who's aware of that thought. Okay, so, quite often it's made to seem like, awareness of awareness is some really, high state, but actually it's not. It's really easy, right? Just to notice that I'm the one who's watching. And what I'm watching is not me. And what I'm watching includes my thoughts and my emotions. And then when you do that, then you stop projecting the sense of self onto your, your inner show, onto your thoughts and emotions. So, he concludes this chapter by saying that the only thing that differentiates you from a conscious centered being is the focus of your awareness. So not a difference in the consciousness itself. So, the Dalai Lama, Ramana Maharshi, Thich Nhat Hanh, whoever, there's no difference in the consciousness. This is the Buddha nature, right? The consciousness, the nature of consciousness is the same in all of us. And the only difference is they're always sitting in the seat of awareness, and, us less so, right? And when you become aware of your consciousness, then basically that's, you're an awakened being. And this is what Mickey says. This is what Thai says, Thich Nhat Hanh. He always says we're all part-time Buddhas, right? And whenever we're sitting in this seat of consciousness, we're awake. And, this reactivity, we can just watch it, right? We can have fear come up. We can have sadness come up. We can have anger come up, but it doesn't have to be a problem. And it allows us to, instead of being so self-absorbed, so focused on one person's inner experience, our inner experience, we can expand and be, see a lot more, not be so self-focused, eventually even, connect with the cosmic consciousness. As Jeff Warren would say, we can be not quite such an asshole, right? So, any questions on that? Okay. Great. So now let me see. Is there anything in the chat? Oh yeah. Thinking through a problem is our intention. The inner voice is not our intention. Okay. And let the universe decide for us what we, yeah. It is interesting to let the universe decide. It's like mind blowing, I find. And I highly recommend Mickey's book, The Surrender Experiment, if you want to see how it's played out in his life. So actually, I'm just going to briefly share the screen again. We're going to go into breakout groups now. And the subject here is the voice in your head. So we'll go into breakout, just to breakout of 2. And this is an opportunity to talk about like what things does the voice in your head say? You know, what does it talk to you about or tell you to do? Is it helpful? And what's your experience like of being at a distance from it or getting lost in it? Okay, so just an opportunity to talk about the voice in your head or your inner roommate and what your experience of that is like. So I'm going to put folks in breakout rooms. When I click the button, then you're going to see your screen collapses and then expands again, and then there'll just be 2 of you in the room. I'm not sure, you might have to actually say yes. It might ask you, like say, is it okay to go in the breakout room? And then you have to click yes. And then we'll be in there for about 6 minutes. And when I take you back, it'll come up with a thing that says that the breakout room is going to end in a minute. So you can come right back, or you can, after a minute, you'll automatically be brought back. Okay. So, and I'm going to join in if that's okay. I'm going to join. I don't know whose room I'm going to join in, but I'm going to go into one of the rooms as well. But there'll be 2 other participants in each room. So here we go. And it, again, it's you know, what does the voice in your head say to you? Is it helpful? And what's your experience of, you know, either being absorbed in it or having space from the voice in your head? So here we go.
What he'd like us to do. So hopefully you're not.
I think it's.
Hey, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Are you in our group? There we go.
Oh, there you go. Hi.
Hi. So I'm just going to listen to you guys share if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I was a little foggy, so Tanya, it's just going to help me understand what we were going to talk about right now.
Well, I think, Lori, so correct me if I'm wrong, like we're just answering the questions about what our voice says to us and whether it's helpful. And then what our experience tends to be like do we get lost in it or do we have space for it? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start if you want, Kevin. Is that okay? Or do you want?
That would be fantastic, please.
Okay. Yeah. So my voice, and ever since I can remember, it is a lot of like, so what do I need to worry about next? What's the next thing to worry about? And I even remember that from being a kid, kind of making a list. So no, it's not helpful. I know it thinks it's being helpful to try to keep me safe. And like with the meditation practice, that certainly helps. I find there are definitely times where I can observe it, and label it. But then when it's something that triggers like those old patterns and old fears, that's when I'm like back into rumination. And I'll have moments of like, oh, you could be observing this. I'm like, yeah, but getting lost again. So yeah.
No, definitely. The voice for myself, that inner voice, is generally what perceptions of me are, you know, sort of a lot of times, and it draws from a fear or a presumed knowing, which I'm assuming I know, rather than actually, even if everything else is contradictory to it, my rational mind or my rational sort of approach to it, or just stepping back from it, sometimes can't take control of the situation. I just automatically validate the insecurity or validate this notion of judgment, or this notion that I know how everyone's perceiving me, even though I really don't know how I'm being perceived. And even if you know, I've talked about it with numerous friends, and they will automatically tell me that we never even thought of you, and it's so interesting that I jumped there. So does it serve me? A lot of times I do think, I understand that it's trying to create comfort or a buffer. And I say that only because sometimes it just, my mind goes in a place, well, I guess I shouldn't even say comfort, because I think it's more about self-sabotaging. So maybe that's why I would say I say sometimes comfort only because I feel like it could be numbing at times, and maybe that's just where the voice is deafening. So then it's almost like creating that noise means I don't have to react or respond. So maybe that's what it is. That's the comfort I'm talking about. It definitely isn't truly comfort. It isn't truly blissful. It isn't truly joy, because it's being numb is not truly immersed in an experience. So, but the negative bias of it, I've definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that. Yeah, that inner voice sure doesn't like to shut up, does it?
Yeah.
But I guess, right, it's not about shutting it up, it's about learning to pay attention to it less and less, which I mean is great. And but I find practically, okay, so how do I do that? Like even reading the book, I'm still like, okay, but how do I do that?
I've done a lot of visualization, or, you know, 30-second visualization, or I do a lot of following of Abraham Hicks and things like that. So just the idea of sticking with a positive feeling for 15 or 17 seconds and sort of imagining that feeling, or letting it fill you, and that warmth. And if you can hold it even longer and build on it, that momentum, it's, so I've been doing those kind of exercises, which have helped. A lot of times it's a positive self-talk. So what I'll be doing is like, again, and that might be that awareness of being aware of awareness, because the positive self-talk is listening to that inner voice, but even though I shouldn't be listening to it, but then saying, wait, that doesn't make sense. You are capable. That's not you. You know, so it is. So even though I probably shouldn't be listening, I'm indulging in it. So maybe that's the wrong way to go.
Yeah, but I guess too, like Lori was saying too, it's that discernment piece, right? When you're in a place where you can discern, oh, okay, well, I don't have to throw out everything that it's said. But I find that really helpful too, the self-compassion practice, just being like, it's okay. Yeah, you're freaked out right now, or you're feeling angry, or it's okay. A lot of like Tara Brach or Kristen Neff, that talking kindly to ourselves. But again, it's space to remember to do that in the moment sometimes.
Yeah, and if I might add, I think that self-talk, that positive self-talk, that's not the voice in your head, right? That's more intentional.
It's a good way of looking at it.
Because it's really, the voice in your head is the unintentional.
So can we say that's the referee? Or maybe it's just the other player on the side of the fence, or the net? Well,
I mean, we talk about the mind in session 3, actually, but basically this is just one, the voice in your head is just one part of the mind, because there's the intentional thinking, right? And the intentional thinking is something that can be quite useful, you know. In fact, I mean, it's, you know, like we've built this, I mean, we've done amazing things with our minds, right? So the intentional mind can be quite useful, but we can also use the intentional mind, you know, for, you know, not great ends. And I'm going to close the rooms. So here we go.
So do they leave now? Yeah, we're getting a sign that says leave.
You have 60 seconds to leave the room.
Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah. So you don't have to leave right away, but you can leave whenever you want.
That's okay.
It'll be.
Thank you. Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both.
I think we're all coming back now, just so you know.
Yeah, it looks like yeah, some people are waiting for the minute to be up and some people not. But once the minute's up, everyone will be back. Okay. It looks like we lost somebody.
It was a quick.
There we go. Brian. Okay. Okay. So how was that? Anybody want to share their experience there? We just have a minute or two, so you know, but
I was doing my best not to say what I thought I should say and just allow the universe to let the conversation go where it went.
And how was that?
I didn't succeed.
Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Xu Yang. I think that worked, that format. I mean, that was helpful, and enjoying that sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share quickly. I think Philippa and I were in the breakout room together, and I was just sharing that with my mental talk. I've noticed it's usually very negative or a lot of worrisome thoughts, and I was trying to think of if I've ever noticed it having any type of positive thoughts, and I don't think I have, so it's something I'm going to be paying attention for. And then I find if I don't have space between my thoughts, and I'm just focusing on the inner voice, I get very sucked in and drawn in and usually have more of an emotional reaction or response. Like I feel so close to it, versus when I am able to, in like the occasional instance, actually have space, I'm much more calm, and, you know, I can actually let go and just, I don't know, just be more okay with the thoughts being there and not having to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Great. So yeah, and we'll use the breakout rooms every week. And yeah, I think it's really a nice way to both get to know each other and just explore where you're at. So and at the end of the session tonight, I'll just ask people a little bit just about the format, see if we want to make any adjustments to it. Okay, Jen was saying, yeah, hers was similar to Jyoti's, and Bev says, excited or narrating about what I see. Great, thanks, Bev. So now we're going to do another exercise, a writing exercise. So I'm going to share my screen if you have a pen and paper, or if you want to use your computer or whatever. So yeah, and the writing exercise is basically to brainstorm about your small stuff, because when we practice letting go, And really, that's the main practice in this course. We want to practice with the small stuff, with the, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of how, you know, how powerful it is. We want to stick to the 1s and 2s. That's really, you know, we're learning something new. So, you know, with all practice, you want to start at the shallow end of the pool. So, a good place to start is just to brainstorm with yourself, to write down small things that have bothered you in the last few days, or small things that tend to bother you, that, you know, that are more, you've noticed more, you know, over a longer period of time, or small things from the past that bother you when you remember them, or just any you know, small things that come up a lot. So anything that tends to, you know, trigger you, cause your heart to close, cause your experience to go negative, but in small ways, small ways. So like I mentioned, biking, and having a, you know, get in my way while I'm biking. That's one I've noted I practiced a lot with, because it's, you know, it's not a big thing and it happens to me all the time. So it's perfect for practice. So I'll just give you, say 5 minutes to, just to write down for yourself what your small stuff is. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask directly or in the chat. Okay, and just another 30 seconds, you could wrap up. Okay. And would someone like to share just one or two things on their list, just so we can all get a feel for, what sort of stuff we're talking about?
Sure. Dishes in the sink, and when plans are not followed or kept.
Mm-hmm. How about others?
I'd like to share. So for mine, I wrote what to cook for the next meal, and I need to change the sheets.
Excellent.
I was horrified at just, I almost got writer's cramp. I didn't think so many things bothered me, but apparently they do. But one was just this evening, I went for a walk just on a trail not far from my house, and the irony, I was annoyed that there were so many people out on the trail. And then these two tweens had like their phones like blasting music, and part of me was amused, but part of me was also irritated. And I think what amused me is I almost flipped into teacher mode and was going to like educate them on how, people really wanted to enjoy the nature. And then I kind of caught myself and laughed at myself and walked away.
Thanks, Tanya. It's great.
Lori, I'll share just a quick point. It's something that gets my gears all the time, and it's something just so ridiculous, but how my neighbor always parks too close to my car just grinds my gears.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing here is, also and I didn't put this in the writing exercise, but just to notice like what impact does this have on your experience, right? Does it turn your experience negative? And do you prefer the negative experience or the positive experience? It's sort of a rhetorical question, but yeah, how can we when our heart closes, how can we reopen it, right? And how can we have our experience go from negative to positive? And the simple answer is letting go. Letting go is the way that you do that. So I'm going to share the screen, and so this is actually a document that so this is a document that is in the resources. So I've created a Google folder in Google Drive that I'll share with everyone right after this. And so it'll have the handout for the week with the home practice for the week, and it has the guided meditations, and it's got this document, which is kind of just a primer on letting go, just to help you to reference, if you will, for letting go. Mickey has all sorts of things in his book about letting go, but they're kind of here and there and everywhere. So the first part, and he doesn't really talk about mindfulness, like he talks about it as being necessary, but he doesn't tell you how to do it. And I think everyone here actually, I think 12 out of 15 have a longstanding practice, and I think, but the other three, everyone has some experience. So the first step is being aware, of course, that you're holding on, right, and having that distance in your experience. So some of the things we can practice, both formally, in formal practice, and also throughout the day. So formal practice is when you're dedicating a period of time to practice, as opposed to going about your day and bringing your practice to whatever you're doing. So one is noticing resistance. That could be tension or any pushing away or grasping or, wanting discomfort or difficulty to go away, including difficult emotions. Allowing, so really, and I kind of divided it up into three, and these are just, to help you to parse, to kind of try different things. So one is accepting, which is just like, this is reality. This is the way how things are. You can't change reality in the present moment, right? It is what it is. And then allowing the experience to move freely. So I emphasize this a lot, to unfold as it wishes, not as you wish, right? So however the energy or the experience or whatever you want, a moment, whatever you want to call it, just to allow it to move freely, to do as it wishes, not as you wish. It's letting go of how you wish things to be. And opening, which is actually like a more of a positive, like of a, it's not exactly an effort, but it's kind of an intention, right? An intention, asserting the will to fully experience, right? The present moment, to let the moment all the way in, let it touch the depths of your being, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, right? And Mickey Singer's teachings and Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings are very, very similar. They both focus on, practicing throughout the day rather than formal practice. And they're both focused on experiencing the moment fully, allowing it all the way in, right? And Thai talks about it more in terms of going into the experience and opening fully to it. Mickey talks more about letting go of the resistance to the experience, but the result is the same, right? And I find it's helpful to come at it from both ends, really. And then the other is noticing the personal mind, right? Which is just the voice in your head, right? So later in the book, Mickey will start calling it the personal mind. Any sort of I, me, mind talk, including any opinions or beliefs, or, it better not rain. That's a personal mind, right? Anything that has to do, it's like, it's about what I want, and it's about the impact on me and how I think things should be. So those are things to kind of look out for in your experience, both formally and throughout the day. And as I said before, committing to letting go is really important, setting the intention and really making learning to let go, your highest intention of the day. And I haven't gotten into this so much, but, and Mickey talks about it a lot, and I think it's really important, is just, the fact that it's not just letting go in this like vague way, but like letting go is what will release your blockages. Release your blockages is what allows the energy to flow. The energy flowing is feeling joy, feeling love, feeling excitement, feeling enthusiasm, feeling peace, feeling ecstasy, as Mickey says, right? He talks about Sat Chit Ananda, which is this idea. I don't think he says that in the book, but when you hear his talks, he talks about Sat Chit Ananda, which is this eternal conscious ecstasy, right? Which is the energy that flows within us, or the nature of our being, right? The nature of our consciousness that's always there, but it gets covered up, and we get distracted from it. And so ultimately, we can look at the outer world and we can say, well, I want a car, I want this job, I want this relationship, I want a cottage, I want whatever. But it's all really about wanting that joy, that peace, that enthusiasm, that love, right? That's really why we want these things. But, if you really want them, and not in a conditional way, but in an unconditional way, and I've noticed this in my experience more and more, is this real true happiness that is there always, and letting go is the way to get there. So really commit yourselves to letting go, right? To say, no, when this, all the small stuff that you wrote down, when that comes up, I want to let it go, and I am going to do everything I can to be able to really be present with it and be aware of it and let it go. So that's super important. And again, if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to jump in here. And then how to let go. So in the guidance, it sort of goes through this, but basically it happens in 3 places: in the body, and it's about relaxing the body; in the mind, which is letting go of wanting things to be different, and so you can actually say to yourself, you may have this mental, like, I want this tension to go away, I want this tension to go away. But then you can try, like, actually saying to yourself, let me experience this fully. you know Break down later in the book, Mickey talks about these walls that we put up, right, to defend ourselves. And it's like, break down my defenses, destroy my defenses, because your defenses are your blockages, right? You want your defenses to be destroyed. So it's just this real, like, this attitude of, I want to experience this fully. This is purification, if you will, right? Let me, I want to experience this purification. And then awareness, which is the being in the seat of self, the seat of consciousness. That, as Mickey says here, you, and this is from a little later chapter, but you, the one inside watching the neurotic mind, just relax, right? So relaxing the consciousness itself. So again, practice with the small stuff. And what Mickey, he always says, relax, release, lean back. So relax the body, release the mind, lean back into awareness, because the awareness is in, we tend to be aware of it behind us. So we lean back into it. And after you practice this for a while, just the physical leaning back will actually move you into that seat of awareness. So again, relax the body around your heart, your shoulders, on an out breath. Don't force it, it's just allowing. Release the mind, recognize it's the personal mind talking, it's not you. Whatever it says is garbage, don't listen to it. So I'm glad we had that discussion. So it doesn't mean actually don't hear it, it means don't follow it, right? Or at least don't follow it blindly, right? And from the discussions that I heard around, what does the personal mind say? What does the voice in your head say? Generally, it's not saying helpful stuff. So, and again, you can intentionally generate a positive opposing thought. So, like if the person ahead is driving slowly and you're thinking, what the heck are they doing, right? You're getting frustrated. And instead to, intentionally create a thought like, isn't that nice to be in no rush at all? Or what an incredible moment to learn to let go. That's the one I find is the best, is, right, the purpose of this moment is to learn to let go, right? What a gift they're giving me. They're giving me an opportunity to learn to let go. See them as God, helping you to learn to let go. Release the wish for the experience to be different. So yeah, allow the inner experience to unfold as it wants, not as you want, and open to the experience. Let it touch the depths of your being. So, and then lean back into awareness. Again, if you have any questions, I'm going fast because we're getting near the end here, but there's always time for questions. So just asking who notices, and this is the question that Mickey tends to use the most. Who notices? You can try other variations, so you can make it specific, like who notices this tension, who notices these thoughts, who notices that I'm reading, right? Who notices the reading? And then another way to come at it is, instead of using a who question, use a what question, right? What is having this experience? And so try different ones out. I would definitely try some who and some what, because I find there's a slightly different feel to the what compared to the who. But the main thing is just to become, to create that space between you, the one who's watching, the subject, and the object, the experience. So lean back. So again, that's just the physical thing. And there's Mickey's quote. And then just that this is what allows you to gain perspective, that what is going on is not you. So the disidentification, and you're the one who notices. And it provides space to see this as an opportunity to learn to let go, to, not be absorbed in the thoughts. And frankly, I mean, if you're absorbed in the thoughts, you're not even going to be practicing, because you're not even going to have this, you're not going to, you're not going to have the recognition that this is an opportunity to learn to let go. You're just going to be absorbed in your whatever your thoughts are. So again, the key is to have that awareness. Yeah. So I've run through that pretty quickly. Any questions? No. What are people like, you know, what do people think about this idea of committing to let go? Of making learn, and it's learning to let go, okay? Because you won't always be able to let go. You can't force yourself to let go. And let go doesn't mean it goes away, right? Let go means I'm letting it be however it is, right? It's letting go of the resistance, right? You say, oh, I want to let go of this tension. No, you're not letting, you're letting go of the resistance to the tension. You're opening to the tension, right? So it's never.
And letting go is also letting come. Let it come.
Yes, very good. Yeah.
I have let go tattooed on my forearm. How much I believe in your message.
Wow, that is commitment. A lifetime commitment. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so yeah, it's letting it come, letting it be, letting it go, right? It's the whole like surrender thing, right? The main thing.
And
yeah.
well, a question I have is, I think "let it come" is a great phrase, because I think that's a piece maybe for certainly for future investigation, and something I want to look at in the courses. What actually happens when I do allow that to play out as it might play out? And I've had some experiences that I'm hoping I'll get a chance to discuss, because letting it go isn't just like, oh, well, then it's sort of just on the side. It's not always just on the side. It sometimes takes front and center, and stuff gets processed, and something that seems very small, so sometimes is suddenly very big and systematic and relates to feminism. And so letting go sounds simple, but in my experience, the release of that thorn can be quite a process, physically and mentally and emotionally.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, you know, they say that letting go is the last step before enlightenment. You know, you can take yourself really far with all sorts of techniques, but at the end of the day, you have to let go to go that last step. And I mean, and we're not, this course isn't about the last step. This course is about, you know, unblocking ourselves and really concrete practices and concrete releases. But yeah, letting go is a deep practice. So I just want to take a few minutes just in terms of the format of this thing and also the course. So part of the course is that we're going to have one-on-one interviews. Like you'll all have one-on-one interviews with me, and we'll have 2 of them. So we'll have one between weeks 2 and 4. So half the people between 2 and 3, and half the people between 3 and 4. And then the second round will be half the people between 4 and 5, and half the people between 5 and 6. So I'm just putting that out there. So, you know, you'll all have that that chance. And but what do people think about the format? Like, you know, for example, the presentation, do you want me to go through the chapters like that? Would it be helpful to spend less time on that, more time on that? Do you want to have more like just asking me questions about the, you know, what do you think about that? And the amount of time spent on that, you know, somewhat didactic presentation part of it.
It's good to go over the main points again. What I found really beneficial was your bicycle car experience. And I think if I heard a little bit more about your experiences, or maybe Michael's, or something that just sort of goes beyond the book a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Brian.
Laurie, I'm curious because I like this summary presentation, but I'm not sure about the amount of time spent on it. I guess my main question would be, is it available as part of the resources?
What I've done as part of the resources, I have a summary. So,
yeah.
But I mean, the recording of this will be available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can make the present. I can add the presentation itself. I can just put the PDF of the presentation in the resources. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, my summary is a little more detailed than the presentation.
Yeah, like I always like having a summary and just reviewing it, but I don't mind doing that on my own time. So I'd be happy to have more discussion, Q&A experiences, but open either way.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat as that. I think this was a good format, but I would love to have some more group discussion. Yeah, I love group discussion. I learn a lot from everyone's perspectives, and yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's really helpful.
Laurie, also Brian's feedback, I found it really helpful when you put your own experience onto the theory or the book or the bullets. Really, really helpful. So definitely coming from your experience. Good.
Okay.
Hi, this is Xuyan. Just to balance things out, I'd like to defend having that concise summary presentation. After all, I mean, this course is built as, a kind of, study of the book. We can have all these other good stuff, but I think it is useful for me, and I suppose for others as well, just to have that quick, recapitulation of the key points. And then, relate to everything else that you want or everyone wants.
Okay, great. So we're almost out of time. I just want to share the home practice. And again, this document is in wait, is this the, no, that's not the right thing, is it? So this document is, sorry, this. Okay, so it is the right document, sorry. This is just the course overview with the consultations and then the home practice. So there's the link, and I'll send the link in an email after this as well, but so it's got the link to the folder. And then just to review those documents, to meditate, I said 15 minutes or more each day. It's up to you how long you want to do it for. Mickey says 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, but I mean, really it's up to you. But I would definitely use the guidance, and then feel free to use whatever meditation you like. Most of you are experienced meditators, but to bring into it emphasis on noticing resistance and letting go, right? And so really bring that into your meditation, and noticing resistance, and then the relax, release, lean back method of letting go. I find it's helpful to do that in meditation. It's helpful for practice for daily life. And then the main practice is in daily life, and it's, work with the small stuff, recall your writing exercise, choose one or two things from your small stuff list to focus on, and really set a strong intention to notice them, to remember that the purpose of the moment is to learn to let go, and to practice to relax, release, lean back with them. Okay, this is the most important part of the homework. Obviously read the next few chapters. And it would be great too if you could journal what the voice in your head says and what you notice in learning to let go in your daily life. So as you're practicing with the small stuff, just to journal a little bit about, to note what you're learning in terms of how to let go, and anything else that you're learning. And and then what your voice in your head says. So you can do the day with your inner roommate if you want, or however you want, but just noticing and writing down what the voice in your head says. So that's the home practice for the week. It's up to you how much or how little you do, but I would, I really, the daily life stuff, like really set a strong intention and really focus on that. And, he hasn't really talked about that in these first 4 chapters, but I think it's important to start practicing right away because this course is short and letting go is tough. So,
Laurie, where do we get the guided meditation?
they're also in the same Google Drive folder. It's all in this one Google Drive folder.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and I'll send an email right after this with the link to the folder. If anyone has any problems accessing it, just email me. It is set up so anyone with the link can view. So, yeah, so that's about it. So if anyone wants to, has any questions, feel free to stay after 9 o'clock. It is just 9 o'clock now, so feel free to leave. Thank you again for coming for this.
Thank you, Laurie.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Laurie.
you've all
Thank
been
you,
great.
Laurie.
Really good.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, Laurie.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the course and I like the presentation, everything about it. So thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad.
Yeah, you've kind of motivated me to get on top of this. So I really, really appreciate it.
Great. I look forward to hearing how it goes next week.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. Good night.
Night.